We're 1/5 of the way through the century, and we've already seen the game industry's fair share of poor quality titles. Name's Dave with WatchMojo, and today we'll be counting down our picks for the top 20 worst video games of the century, so far. For this list, we'll be looking at the absolute worst games that have come out since the turn of the millennium, so anything from the year 2000 onwards. For those of you wondering, Superman 64 came out in 1999. It missed the cutoff date by just 1 year. Consider itself lucky. Number 20, Mortal Kombat Special Forces. Indeed, Mortal Kombat is a pretty big IP throughout the 90s, but one could say Midway got a little carried away with hashing out new titles like Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub-Zero. While that was about as fun as taking a kunai to the chest, Midway hit rock bottom when they shelled out Mortal Kombat Special Forces. A beat-em-up game starring Jax, and only Jax despite being called Special Forces, seriously, where's Sonya? Where players can perform bland combos while navigating rooms that look exactly the same as levels prior. On top of that, the boss characters were lamer than mocap. Really, who's gonna remember like Gemini or No Face? In short, it was the antithesis of a Mortal Kombat game. Even series creator Ed Boon doesn't like to acknowledge its existence.
Pity. They were all looking forward to restarting our little gang.
Number 19, Rogue Warrior. Even though we live in a world where Fallout 76 exists, we still have to say Rogue Warrior is the worst game Bethesda has ever published. Rogue Warrior went through some troubled development, and it clearly shows. Bethesda was not happy with the direction that Zombie Studios was taking and gave the project over to Rebellion Development. The result was a game marred with boring gameplay, mindless swearing from Mickey Rourke, and an extremely short campaign. But mostly the swearing. That was probably the most memorable part for the wrong reasons. Critics even went so far as to advise gamers to play anything else. And when reviewers say your game is that bad, it might be best to ditch this IP entirely.
God damn, it smells like dog and gunpowder in here.
Number 8, Dai Katana. Yes, the game that infamously touted how John Romero was gonna make us his bitch. At the time, we were all genuinely eager to experience Dai Katana. This was coming from one of the designers behind Doom, Quake, and Wolfenstein, just to give you an idea. And it was to incorporate some impressive AI. Alas, Dai Katana became nothing more than a really bad joke, with critics citing its mediocre design, outdated visuals, and really, really bad companion AI. The game was such a letdown that it tarnished John Romero's career, and tanked his lavish studio, Ion Storm. At least he apologized for the bad tagline though.
I'm not here. They may be watching.
Number 17, Left Alive.
Full status check. Legs are badly damaged and unable to function.
What about the weapons? Tell me I can use those at least.
Shoulder weapons returning in error. Only the right hand weapon is functioning.
This was not the game the Front Mission franchise deserved. Left Alive was one of the most frustrating games anyone can play. Where do we even begin? The AI is constantly dancing between being super smart or super stupid, knowing our location almost all the time and not knowing how to fight back. Oh, and the agony doesn't stop there. Your ears will constantly ache from your alert system as it constantly berates you about approaching enemies even though you can clearly see them. If there was any redeeming qualities to be found in Left Alive, we certainly couldn't play long enough to find them.
Apologies, Olga, but I've got to take care of this. The vermin in this city won't exterminate themselves.
Number 16, Batman, Dark Tomorrow. Dark Tomorrow was, and still is, an embarrassment to superhero games everywhere, and that's saying a lot. The game was so bad that the only positive feedback it got was for its cutscenes, so long as you ignored one of the worst Joker performances ever. Seriously, have a look at this.
You know what would have been funny, though? If I'd... No, we'll save that for another time, won't we? It's playtime now!
Everything else was a total mess. The game suffered from a myriad of technical issues, the camera refused to cooperate with the player, and the controls were the biggest enemy over anything else. On top of that, those who powered through this catastrophe were most likely met with a bad ending. The only way to achieve the good ending was by doing something early in the game, which Dark Tomorrow gave no hints at or directions for the players to discover it. Seriously, what a mess.
Hell yeah!
If only, beloved, if only.
Number 15. Alone in the Dark, Illumination. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Alone in the Dark hasn't had a stellar track record in its later years, and unfortunately, this awful excuse for a Left 4 Dead clone was no return to glory. Judging from its broken gameplay, boring combat, and endless technical issues, the game needed way more time cooking in the oven. Way more time! Not a single outlet had many positive things to say, and most critics advise readers to stay as far away from the game as possible. We just might have to face it, folks. Alone in the Dark will forever be lost in its own darkness. Number 14. Sonic Boom! Rise of Lyric. Both this and Sonic 06 were contenders for this list, but 06 had one redeeming factor in that the soundtrack was pretty epic, whereas Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric can't even claim that. The game was already doing poorly in previews, with many critics citing the uncomfortable designs of Sonic, Tails, Amy's and Knuckles, but mostly Knuckles. Oh, what a dark day when the game launched in November 2014. Rise of Lyric was plagued with so many problems. Terrible controls, dull level design, tedious puzzles and platforming, boring combat, a buffet of bugs, a frustrating camera, and irritating and repetitive dialogue. At least the TV show was pretty good.
Try to appreciate all the work I put in as they destroy you. Toodles!
Number 13. Double Dragon 2. Wonder of the Dragons. Most of the Double Dragon games are rock-solid titles, but we cannot say the same for Double Dragon 2 Wonder of the Dragons, a 3D adaptation of Double Dragon 2 The Revenge, or trying to be anyway. This game was panned by critics for its abysmal, broken state, suffering from so many bugs and glitches that it was basically unplayable. The game also had some really bizarre English translations, with voiceovers not matching the subtitles on screen, giving the whole game an overall cheap factor. Seriously, did they proofread this stuff? Thankfully, it wasn't enough to kill the franchise. Number 12. Bomberman Axe Zero. In 2012, Hudson Soft was bought out by Konami, but the road to their downfall started with this title. Back in 2006, the company attempted to turn the cutesy, lovable Bomberman into some kind of gritty action hero. Really, what's with the chains and BDSM designs?
Ready, start.
No longer was Bomberman filled with colourful enemies and a lighthearted tone, even in a game about blowing people up. The series needed to be more mature and reel in all the cool hit kids with their edgy attitude, right? Right? No. Even if this was a necessary change, the game was still horrendous with its unbalanced AI, god-awful camera, and absolute tediousness. Oh, and can you believe there's no save feature? Seriously, if you die, you get booted right back to the title screen. What a joke. Number 11. Charlie's Angels. Back in the early 2000s, it seemed like we were getting an endless supply of terrible movie tie-ins. Although we'd never thought there'd be a game just as worse as E.T. Okay, maybe that's a slight exaggeration, but still, Charlie's Angels was abysmal to its very core. Controls were frustrating, animations were lazy in quality, goofy to watch, look at this run animation, and the level design showed minimal effort was put into the game, including some of the longest ladders you'll ever see. Seriously, the game is so bad you'd want to forget that it even exists. That's how bad it is. But then again, you can pretty much say that about everything on here. Well, almost everything. Next one is memorable for different reasons.
How special.
Number 10. Super Seducer. How to talk to girls.
Of course, you're very sexy, but for me, it's about the entire package, not just looks. I need to find someone's character sexy.
As weird as they can be, dating sims have a lot to teach players on how the world of dating works. When compared to titles like How to Fall Boyfriend or Doki Doki Literature Club, Super Seducer is a massive regressive step back for the genre. Awkward dialogue and boring cutscenes are minor complaints when the players discover the game's borderline predatory dating advice.
Why did you ask that? Gives her the opportunity to say no.
Don't give her the option to say no? Is that really a lesson you want players walking away with? Super Seducer 2 wasn't any better and indulged in Richard Larunia's egotistical behaviour. And can you believe there is a third game coming out? Who keeps buying these?
Does anyone want some chewing gum?
Yeah. Okay.
Perfect. So those are our code words.
Yeah.
Number 9. Raven's Cry. We don't see a lot of good pirate games these days, but Raven's Cry was certainly a step back for those craving a swashbuckling adventure. Rather than plunder the seas for treasure or getting drunk at taverns, most of our time with Raven's Cry was spent laughing at the awful writing, laughably bad voice acting, and countless technical issues. The game was so bad that developer Reality Pump Studios attempted to implement changes to fix the game, ultimately rebranding the game as Vendetta: Curse of Raven's Cry in November 2015. Sadly, the game was still just as awful, but hey, at least they tried to fix it.
Howie's our friend.
Busy exploring the bottom of the sea.
Number 8. Umbrella Corps.
I'm the only one left.
Here's a tip: never develop a game based on a popular IP for the sake of making it the next big thing in esports. That's exactly what happened with Capcom, and it did not end well. Umbrella Corps was a spin-off online shooter set within the Resident Evil franchise, where two teams had to complete objectives while shooting each other and fighting zombies. However, the gameplay was plagued with issues that made fair competitive play impossible, from inconsistent zombie AI, hit detection issues, and a lackluster progression system. Capcom have been trying for years to push Resident Evil into the multiplayer scene, and this just added to an already long list of failed attempts.
Have fun with that.
Number 7. Drake of the 99 Dragons. There was so much ambition behind this game. The cell shading looked promising, the bullet time mechanic looked fun to use, and there were plans to turn this into a multimedia franchise. All that potential burst into flames on launch day. Drake of the 99 Dragons was plagued with an infuriating camera, overly sensitive controls, a broken lock-on system, and a story that made no goddamn sense whatsoever. There was nothing redeemable about the game, and all the plans for a comic book series and animated TV shows were swiftly flushed down the toilet.
Tang Industries pay families to donate the bodies of their departed loved ones. Contact us today.
Number 6. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 5. Had Activision given the developers more time, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 5 could have been a triumphant return to the franchise. Alas, playing this was almost as painful as a board between the gonads, or should we say getting popsicled. Assembled in just a matter of months and released unfinished, and the only reason it came out was to extend the Tony Hawk license, Pro Skater 5 suffered greatly from bugs and glitches, while missing key features from previous entries. Really? Where the hell is the Creator Skater? Not only would this be the final nail in the Pro Skater coffin, it would also lead to the closure of developer Robomodo. Needless to say, no one walked away with a smile. With the servers shutting down in 2017, the game is now unplayable. Wow, hope you didn't pay full price for this thing. Number 5. Ninjabread Man. To say this game was half-baked would be too generous, and I will not do that again. Ninjabread Man was nothing short of a scam in every sense of the word, demanding a hefty amount of money for such little effort. Featuring only 3 levels, not including the tutorial, unresponsive controls, and combat that could barely be referred to as such. The game was an experience that could be finished in less than an hour. To make matters worse, developer Data Design Interactive would reskin this game and shell out 3 other games, such as Anubis 2, Rock'n'Roll Adventures, and Mythmakers Trixie in Toyland. Guess what? All 3 were just as bad. They were also pretty much the same game. Can you believe they wanted to sell these for $20 a pop? Number 4. Aquaman, Battle for Atlantis. If Batman Dark Tomorrow was an embarrassment, then Aquaman Battle for Atlantis is a complete failure. The game is nothing more than swimming around in empty Atlantis, beat up enemies, and rinse and repeat. And the story is told entirely through text and comic panels. There isn't even any narration accompanying these images. Originally, this was going to be the first game as part of a long-term deal between DC Comics and publisher TDK Interactive. However, one look at TDK's gameography says the deal was most likely terminated due to Aquaman's poor reception. There was even plans for a PS2 and Game Boy Advance versions, but maybe their cancellations is more of a blessing than a curse. Number 3. Life of Black Tiger. Really, why shouldn't Life of Black Tiger be on this list? Would it be the repetitive and boring gameplay? What about the incredibly lame story? Would the PS2 graphics in 2017 be enough reason? Oh wait, it's because of the horrible controls, poor collision detection, grindy progression system, and shoddy multiplayer. On top of that, the game's cover art was stripped straight out of Google Images. Class act, guys. With PlayStation promoting this game on their YouTube account, many people began questioning if Sony was about to follow in Steam's footsteps and throw quality control out the window. Number 2. Ride to Hell, Retribution.
Yeah, that's it. Try your luck.
How can anyone forget a game as piss poor as something like Ride to Hell Retribution? While it did boast a strong presence amongst streamers and influencers, none of it was for the right reason. Ride to Hell Retribution was Tommy Wiseau levels of sheer awfulness, and it wasn't solely for the terrible voice acting or cringy and offensive dry humping scenes. The AI was incessantly stupid, refusing to defend itself even when the players were landing headshot after headshot. The game became so infamous that Deep Silver pulled the game from Steam in September 2014. And to think there were planning 2 more games after this. Yeah, this game really crashed and burned. Before we unveil our top pick, here are a few dishonorable mentions. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. Big Rigs Over the Road Racing. Not only is Big Rigs the worst racing game to ever exist, but it's also up there with being one of the worst games ever made, right alongside that of E.T. and Superman. Even by 2003 standards, the visuals made watching paint dry more visually appealing. Players could drive anywhere without suffering any consequences, phase through buildings, and drive up steep mountains, and you won't lose an ounce of speed. Oh, and should you drive in reverse, you'll achieve warp speed for reasons. Yeah. If there was any way to describe the sheer amount of laziness on display, it would be that damn victory screen. You're a winner! This game sucks. In the mood for more awesome gaming content? Be sure to check out this video here on Mojo Plays. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.